Hello and welcome. Child labour is a scar on the world's conscience in the 21st century. Those words from the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, are exemplified by genuine horrors around the world. Children are born, sold and trafficked into slavery, often earning as little as $1 a month. Many aged 5 to 15 are working as slaves, minors, prostitutes and soldiers. It's happening everywhere from Latin America to Asia. One brave man in India gave up a promising career as an electrical engineer at the age of 26 to follow a worthy but dangerous dream. He staged raids on factories, circuses, quarries, in fact any place where children and often entire families were held captive as bonded workers. Since he began his crusade, he has saved tens of thousands of children from slavery. Now here's a look at one of his raid and rescue operations from the documentary Ropes in Their Hands. Here, Kailash Satyarthi trying to free children from bonded labour in a circus.
Kailash Satyarthi and his colleagues were taken inside the circus. Around 24 girls and young women were brought out for parents to identify their daughters.
लेकिन ये तरीका नहीं है कि बच्चों को धमका के मालिक के सामने कभी बयान नहीं होता बच्चों का। बयान इसे भी होगा लेकिन आप जो भी मैनेजर के सामने भी नहीं होगा।
What followed was a reflection of the fright and complete helplessness of the activists and the parents. Mohammad Raza, the owner, took out his gun and tried to shoot Satyarthi.
Dangerous but worthy work undertaken by Kailash Satyarthi. Now don't forget, we take your questions on this show. To contact us by phone, please dial country code 1 for the USA, then 202-741-0720. We can also receive text messages from your mobiles. That number is 44 for the country code for the UK, then 7797-800-600. If you're using emails, send those to riz@aljazeera.net. Joining me to discuss the plight of these children in South Asia are, from New Delhi, Kailash Satyarthi, who heads up the Global March Against Child Labour, an umbrella organisation that brings together hundreds of social groups and trade unions around the world. And Dr. Sudhanshu Joshi, the Executive Director of the International Centre on Child Labour and Education here in Washington, D.C. Dr. Joshi's centre works to promote the rights of children to education and protection from economic exploitation. We'll get to Kailash Satyarthi in a minute, but let me get to Dr. Joshi here in Washington, D.C. with me first, sir, and ask, you know, we're seeing some of the stuff that's being done by Kailash. I'll ask him about that in a moment, but what is it? It's on a small scale, really, what he's doing when you consider the millions of children in this kind of bonded slave labour. What can be done to effectively do something for many more?
I think the significance of Kailash's work has to be seen from two perspectives. One, that we should recognize that India has probably one of the largest number of children out of schools and one of the most endemic problem of child labor at hand. So on the one hand, the work of Kailash has a very, very special value in terms of bringing visibility to this issue in India, because if you know the context in India, there are cultural values that guide families to have children. Half a dozen children working in anyone who has the means to afford to drop their kids to the schools or to wash their utensils or to wash the clothes, that's very normal, and children get abused, physically and sexually abused in the process. It is to the credit of Kailash that in the last 20 years that he has built this movement, one of the largest social mobilization in contemporary times, that at least he brought this issue under radar, and if it was not, then probably these children would have remained voiceless. On the other hand, I think that the significance of Kailash's work from the perspective of the Global March is that in about 140 countries, the movement that he has built has national chapters, and these chapters are engaged in a political dialogue with the governments, which has led to the ratification, some of the largest number of ratifications of the ILO Convention 182.
International Labour Organization, yeah.
Of the ILO, International Labour Organization. And more than 150 countries have ratified, their parliaments have ratified. So it signifies that there is a huge huge political will across.
Well, you yourself, Dr. Joshi, you've been in the field. You spent many years in the field and then came to Washington to head up the organization here. Tell me about first your experience in the field and really how now you're finding it, how effective you can be in DC.
I have worked 17 years in development financing, and I worked predominantly for the Dutch donors, and my work was, I was very determined that I will not leave India, that I will work and support grassroots initiatives, and especially these grassroots initiatives that are helping to build an enabling environment for the families to be able to build some measure of food security. And I had a lot of satisfaction in all the work that I did, but at some point of time I realized that I should try to bring a southern perspective on poverty in Washington DC, because to build political consensus in the international policy domain is the critical issue, so that people understand, the governments understand that investing in education is the key to fight child labor and to fight structural poverty.
Are they listening to you?
I think that the work, the movement that Kailash has built and our office has together made some very, very significant progress in terms of building a political consensus across the entire donor community, that they understand that investing in education is the most important thing, one. And second, also to fight structural poverty. The only way to fight structural poverty is to bring every single child to the school. If we are not able to bring these children to school, then these children will be abused and it will perpetuate intergenerational poverty. And these countries, to understand, the poor countries, that only by investing in education there is the hope and opportunity that they can harness the rich human resource potential, that they can make use of this in this the globalized economy. Building knowledge capital is the key to move forward.
We will get to Kailash in a moment in Delhi, but let me put an email to you that we had that came in. I'll just read it out to you because unable to bring it up for our graphics. It's from Calcutta in India, and Parto Datta says, it's been my long-held belief that trafficking in children happens primarily with the approval of the parents, guardians of the children involved. One has seen several reasons for this inexplicable behavior: extreme poverty, unconcern for the girl child, etc. But it essentially boils down to unsupportable family size. Can I get your comment on that?
I think that I agree with this comment, and I will not dispute. I think the question here is that the quality of education which is being offered to the children, even if just being kind of, doing a dispassionate analysis of the Government of India's education plan, the Education for All plan, this plan for me has some serious gaps, and these gaps have to be addressed. If these plans are not able to articulate that who are these children that are missing out of schools, number one. And second, that what are the special mechanisms that are required to bring these children who are out of schools to classrooms? What are their special needs? Number one. And second, the quality of education that is being offered in the school systems. There cannot be, and India has to recognize this, there cannot be an education system for the rich and an education system for the poor, which is being perpetuated with a lot of para-teachers that are being hired, non-formal education, just a couple of hours of education that children can also continue to be, working in the fields and farms and factories, but also that they get some informal education. This informal education is a bridge to nowhere.
Let me give you another email that we got from Damascus, and Annie in Damascus says, the only way to save the children is to improve the living conditions of the parents. If the latter were not in such dire straits, they would not trade children for money into slavery. Or am I being idealistic, she says?
I think that, this is correct, the situation, but let me tell you that my personal experience has been, which has been validated by the International Labour Organization, this report which says investing in every child. Even in the best of scenarios, first and foremost, we are talking about a segment of children who are going out to work for no remuneration. Why should anybody hire